Hello everybody, welcome to another video of Anatomy Sculpting series with Arash Salehi, and today's topic is torso. Let's start it. As you see it, I'm starting with a sphere and move brush to create basically a rough primitive and primary shapes of the torso, and using the clay build-up to define the border of the major parts, the rib cage, the pectoralis muscles, and the back, and also the side, the external obliques, and this is the lat muscle that the semester that I'm sculpting. If you look at it here from the side view, one of the important things that we need to consider when we are sculpting the torso is basically this nice gesture for here, and the part that is basically popping out and is basically it's more forward in comparison to the other parts, and the climax of this curvature is here. It's basically it's the top of that costal cartilage arch. Costal cartilage. On top of that, and the basically the six-pack muscles or abdomen muscles that we have, two of them are placing here on top of this, and they are very diagonal in comparison to the rest, and as we go down they become more straighter, and the other two are here, and this is the other ones, and finally one big one that is here. And basically it's mostly we see these six, and this one barely we see that, but some people has a division here too, and they have 8 packs if they do a lot of workouts. The other thing that I want to talk about it is here, as it goes down it becomes narrower, that basically the abdominal muscles, and if you look at it from the front view, the shapes is something like this. Let me draw the middle line, and it tapers down and it goes down, and the top part is attaching to the fifth rib underneath of the pectoralis muscles. Pectoralis muscles is here, if you imagine they are here, and this muscles goes down lower and tapered down, and this muscle that I talked to you guys is on top of the basically the costal cartilage. We see part of that because part of that is hidden behind the pectoralis major, and we see part of that here, and the other one is here too, the second one, the third one is here, and usually the navel or belly button is here between this one and the fourth one. Let me change the color here. This is the belly button. This is the first, second, third, and the fourth one here. And what else we need to talk about this muscle? And remember that nice gesture here. See, as we go lower it becomes straighter. And yep, remember these tips for the abdomen muscles. And a little bit of sculpting the glute muscles and the muscles of the leg. And the other thing that we need to talk about it here is this basically, change the color, clavicle, the bone. Here the top part is basically the medial part is round, but we see a little bit of that, and the gesture for that, if you look at from the top view, is like this, is a S shape. Remember, 1/3, 2/3, and the last third. And here we have a flat area, and we see that basically very obviously in any character, if they have a lot of muscle, they have developed muscles, or they are really lean. It's here, see. And the other bony landmark that we have here, besides this, at the end of that clavicle, is acromion process. Is another basically rectangular shape, which there is no muscles on top of that. And this muscle at the end of the clavicle every time is on top of this one. If you look at it from the front view, this is the clavicle from the front view, is a straight line almost, or a little bit oblique, and it's basically diagonal. But from the top view is a shape. This is from the front view. If imagine this is the medial head, this is the lateral head, and here is the acromion process. See, this head of the basically the lateral head of the clavicle is higher than the acromion process, and acromion process is part of it, is the end of the spine of the scapula, and the scapula is behind the character. And the muscles of the chest, pectoralis major, is like this. 1/3 of that clavicle is covered by that, basically the top part of that pectoralis major. And if the person has a developed muscles, we will see less part of this clavicle, because the muscle fibers of this area, let me change the color, goes on top of this area, and barely we see this area. But if a person is lean and it doesn't have that much of muscle, we clearly can see this the medial third of the clavicle. And here finally we have a depression between this part of the clavicle, this part of the pectoralis major and the deltoid muscle. So here is the depression, and we see that clavicle, the middle third of the clavicle, clearly in almost in any type of character. And sternocleidomastoid mastoid muscle, which starts from the behind the ear, from the mastoid process, and attaches to the clavicle. It has two heads. One head is attached to the medial part of the clavicle. The other part attaches to the 1/3 of the clavicle. And the spine of the scapula, the medial border. If you look at here, the character, let me change the color. Here you see I sculpted a little bit bump here, both sides. And this bump is because of the manubrium. Manubrium is part of the sternum, and if I'm right here, okay. This bottom part of here, the first rib attaches to manubrium, and the second rib is here almost. So for the second rib, because this area, the manubrium, attaches to sternum and is a joint here, and this causes this basically bump, and basically this part of the pectoralis major pops up. So if you look at specifically on bodybuilders, you will see this area vividly and very obviously. And the top part of that is the clavicular part of that, basically pectoralis major. And you see barely we see that clavicle, the medial third of the clavicle here, because the muscle fibers goes on top of that and rolls over that. To call it epigastric, it's basically notch here. It's almost the end of the sternum, but there is one more piece sternum has it, and it goes almost inside, and this is called xiphoid process. What for some people is visible, but mostly it's invisible and causes depression here. And I'm sculpting the external obliques on the side. There is one more thing I sculpted here, and here let me show you. It starts this part from the anterior, superior, iliac spine, or the abbreviation of that, ASIS. It starts from here, which is the one of the bony protrusion of that's basically pelvis area, and it doesn't matter if the character has the person has a muscles that are well developed or skinny. We can see that, and it's obvious here. And there is a tendon that starts from here and it goes all the way to here, to the pubic symphysis of the basically if I'm right, pubic symphysis of this pelvis area. And this is pubic symphysis is at joints that's made of cartilage. So remember, this is the tendon that we see here, and this is external oblique. I will cut and chop off this area because this muscle, even though the character is or the person is has a well developed muscles, is not that round, but the bottom part it goes and roll over here, and we see the bone here and attaches. The bone comes ends to the anterior superior iliac crest, the pelvis area. And this is the external oblique, and the direction of the muscle fibers are like this, and it starts from the number 5th rib, and it comes down, and it goes towards basically the back, and the bottom part, this area grabs on the ribs number 11, 11, 12, and 10, 11, 12 in the back side. It goes around here, this area, toward the back. This is for external obliques, and it has muscle fibers. For some people, we can see them basically, obviously, and they are very clearly, we can see them, but for some people, no. And this is for the external oblique. And the other thing that we need to talk about the external oblique is that between external oblique and, let me change the color and clear everything here, between external obliques muscles and abs, there is a space between them, and usually they call this space semilunar line, because if you look at it from the top view, this area to this basically gap, it's like this. This is for this side, this is for this is from top view, and this side is attached to the external oblique, and this side goes and attaches to basically the abs muscles. So this area, because of the shape that it has, it's like it's half a moon, like this. They call it semilunar line in between. And remember, every time when you're sculpting, consider that one, because this gap is very important. These two muscles are not it's basically immediately attached. They don't attach to each other immediately, the abs and external oblique. This gap, this curve basically gap, is between these two. Go back a little bit. Okay, here. The other thing that we need to consider is the nice gesture of that the lats and external obliques create from the front view. Is like this almost. See, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is specifically very obvious for a male character, but for female characters, this basically oblique line is more toward basically it's a straight line, and here we have a very nice gap. Basically, it's diagonal. This gap that we see here in this area is for female people. Are filled up with fat pads, and there are more fat pads on the flank basically muscle, and it makes this area rounder. And finally, here is greater trochanter, is the bony protrusion of the femur, and it makes a nice round shape on the sides. For female characters, usually it's very round. It's like this, straight and round. But for a male character, 1, 2, 3. For females, usually 1 straight, and the second line that starts from the waist is very round in comparison to the male that is very sharp here. Okay, here some people think that the lat muscles, because they see in anatomy pictures, it goes and then they should sculpt it all the way to here. But actually, if you look at more closely to that anatomy pictures that you will see that this area is white, and the area that is red is this area. So what is the difference between white and red? The white area are tendons, and tendons are it's basically very thin sheet of basically fibers, and they don't make that much of surface form. But the red area are muscle fibers, actual muscle fibers, and they make a surface form for us. So remember that when you're looking at anatomy pictures, you need to pay attention exactly to the white area. This will help you to sculpt your character properly. And the other thing that I want to talk about it here, it's the external oblique that we talked about it. It comes here and it goes, grabs basically to the rib number 10, 11 and 12 in the back, and it's something like this. And on top of that, this is the lat muscle, the part of the lat muscle that has muscles, and there is not any fiber there. So it's external oblique, it will goes underneath of the lat muscle here, and it's basically it grabs like this to those ribs that we have in the back. They go. Okay. Tres major and lat muscle, both of them goes it's exactly and attached to the front of the basically humerus, the bone of the upper arm. The one that right now I'm sculpting is the rear head of the deltoid. And again, here when you're sculpting this rear head of the deltoid, this is the spine of scapula. This is acromion process that I talked to you guys. We don't have any muscles on top of that, and spine of scapula itself. And there is a gap between the spine of scapula and the muscle fibers of this back part of the deltoid. Why? Because we have tendons here, and tendons, as I mentioned before, are flat areas, and they don't make that much of surface form. So because of that, we have round shapes here, and here it becomes flat and attaches to the spine of scapula. So the other things that I want to talk about it about the size of and basically the length, the height of the scapula. The height of the scapula from the bottom part of that to the almost this area, and that's we have the trapezoid muscle. It should be about one head, length of one head, not this area. A little bit above that, from the bottom of that basically scapula to almost this area, that's the neck attaches to basically the body. We should have one head of the character should fit in this area if you want to basically place your scapula in the right place. And we talked about other muscles, and there is another thing that here pops up. If you look at here, and this is a muscle that exists underneath of the latissimus dorsi. And what is that muscle? That muscle is serratus anterior, that we see it from the front view, on the side of the character, and it has nice this kind of shape on the side, and specifically we see it a lot in the comic book characters, and usually 3 of them. This is the side, and this is the basically external obliques that goes all the way down, and after that here we will have basically the costal cartilage arch, and the abdominal muscles comes in between. This is serratus anterior. Serratus anterior, it starts from the bottom of the scapula in the back. Basically it exists underneath of this scapula, but the part that makes surface form, it starts from the bottom of the scapula and it goes all the way to the front part, and it wraps around here. It goes like this, and it towards the front area. So because of that, we have a little bit bump in this area. So the other thing is that latissimus dorsi is not that much thick muscle. It's very thin, but the borders of the thickest part of that is the border that it goes toward the front part, and it goes over the serratus anterior muscle on the front part. But the back part of the latissimus dorsi is almost thin, and because of that we see a lot of surface form in the back. That's maybe sometimes we can get us confused, but these are because of the muscles that exist underneath of the latissimus dorsi. And the latissimus dorsi here, it connects to T7, and it goes all the way down the tendon, and basically the tendon part, it goes here to basically the pelvis area, this part, and attaches to this area, this sacrum triangle, and this part is important, T7. Later on, sculpting trapezoids, I will tell you guys why this one is important, the T7. The trapezoid muscle, it actually connects ends on the T12, so it's important for us to basically sculpt it and leads into the upper part of the trap, and basically latissimus dorsi underneath of the trapezoid muscle. That is like this. It goes here and here. And here. Like this. Okay. And a little bit of sculpting at the triceps muscles. And this muscle, the triangular muscle in the back, there was a sculpting between the tres major and the rear head of the deltoid is called infraspinatus. And it's almost just a flat muscle here. Okay, so trapezoid muscle. As we talked, it goes here, attaches to acromion here, and part of that goes to the front and attaches to the lateral third of the clavicle, and this area follows the back, the spine of the scapula. But here, because it has tendons, again, if you look at the anatomy books, you will see that the muscle goes this way, but this area is wide because this area is tendon, and we have a nice curve shape here on the core at the end of the spine of scapula, and after that it attaches a little bit, but the shape can be different from person to person. Here it becomes a little bit straighter. For some people it can go completely diagonal, but some people a little bit straighter, and after that become diagonal. It's different. And this area, as I talked, is infraspinatus, if I am spelling infraspinatus. Infraspinatus, infra means lower in anatomy terms. But we have another muscle, supraspinatus. Supraspinatus, it lives on top of the spine of the scapula and is here, and sometimes it pushes the trapezoid muscles out in a specific articulation of the arm and torso. So let's go back to the trapezoid muscle. The trapezoid muscle again goes down to T12, but this area again are tendons. So because of that, we don't sculpt it completely all the way down to T12. Let me draw over with another color again. There you go. And this area, again, we have tendons. And C7 that pops up, it's here. if this is acromion, we draw a line between these two, a little bit higher than acromion. The line that connects to acromion processes together, a little bit higher than that, is the C7 vertebrae that pops up. Okay. Other muscle that I was sculpting, and sometimes it shows up, and we can see that it's this muscle. Basically, yep. We see a very small part of that. This muscle is called rhomboid muscle, and it has two parts, rhomboid major and rhomboid minor, but the combination of these two, it's basically they grab onto the basically medial border of the scapula, and they go all the way up to C7 and come to T5. They are like this. So this is trapezoid muscle. Let me try it with another color. So it covers the rhomboid almost completely, and this area we have teres major, infraspinatus here. This muscle, we see that the rhomboid, very small part of that here, specifically in that basically people who have well developed muscles. I'm not talking too much about teres minor because it's not making that much of surface for us. The muscle that's in the back that we needed to talk about is the trapezius. It's basically rear part of the deltoid, infraspinatus, teres major, latissimus dorsi, external oblique, and third, the one more muscle that's when I sculpt it, I will talk about it too, guys. And again, you see the two head of that, basically sternocleidomastoid. One head goes to the medial head of the clavicle, the other head grabs to that 1/3 of the, basically it's the medial part of the clavicle. This is again the part that I talked to you guys about, the manubrium that pops up. Okay, if you look at it from this view, the trapezius, part of that is connected to the acromion process, and this is the lateral head of the clavicle. But this muscle, the trapezius, come to the front and attaches to the lateral third of the clavicle, exactly lines up with the front part of the deltoids. Comes here, and this part, this area, both of them lines up with each other. The other part of this muscle goes here to acromion process, and we saw the remaining parts in the back, what will happen to this muscle in the back. And a little bit I'm sculpting that biceps. and a little bit of the leg muscle, sartorius, that starts from the anterior superior iliac crest, iliac spine that we talked about it before, and tensor fascia latex, the other muscle for the leg, starts from again anterior superior iliac spine. Basically, source of a lot of origination of a lot of muscles there is anterior superior iliac spine. So we need to make sure. Okay, this muscle that I'm talking, I talked to you guys before. The last muscle that we need to talk about, the back part, is this part. This muscle. It goes all the way to C7 and starts from the sacrum. The sacrum triangle, if you imagine that, starts from here and it goes, and the parts that we see that is this area, just with this area, and it has another column here too. Sometimes we see that too. It has two columns, one the medial column and other column is this part, the lateral column. Sometimes we see that and makes a little more surface for us, this area. And the name of this muscle is rector spine. Rector spine. So this is the last muscle that we need to talk about. It's from the back, and from the side view, when we look at our model, this muscle, it makes a nice surface form. It's like this. Let me erase everything. Okay, this muscle make almost flat shape, a little bit curve, and the latissimus dorsi make this shape for us, and the remain are the other muscle, tres major, and this is the scapula. And from here we have basically our gluteus maximus muscle. So remember that this part is almost flat when we look at it from the side view. Emphasizing a little bit on latissimus dorsi, paying more attention to that. The medial border of the scapula, the trapezoid muscle, defining the borders. And tres major, it's a Latin word that means lying and round and lying. And the latissimus dorsi, latissimus means widest, and dorsi means back. Latissimus dorsi means the widest muscle of the back. If you start to learn about the name of the muscles and how you can spell them, how you can pronounce them, what is the meaning of the Latin term, it helps you to understand anatomy much better, and you can improve. It helps you, honestly, your sculpting. Actually, it helped me, but hopefully it helped you guys too. Constantly looking at the model from different angles, sides, front, top, bottom, to make sure everything is in the right place. Okay, so right now I created a low-res mesh and projected everything from the Dynamesh on it, and right now I have more control on my sculpture. And these are the two pieces of that abdominal muscle that are over the costal cartilage, and they go underneath of the pectoral muscles. I talked to you guys about that, I sculpted them. They are very tiny but diagonal. See how diagonal they are. And a little bit definition for muscle fibers of the pectoralis major. And since we are talking here, let me tell you another tip about pectoralis minor. Whenever we have, for example, anterior in the anatomy, we should have posterior. When we have brevis, we should have longus. When we have a major, we should have basically minor. So every time you hear these kind of terms in anatomy, you need to search to find the opposite of that. That's where it exists. This part, this muscle called pectoralis major. Most of you know that. And the pectoralis minor is actually exists underneath of that. And if here is acromion process, here acromion process, there is a bony protrusion that is underneath of this is a clavicle here, and this one attaches to the scapula in the back but pops up in the front part because it's very long, and this call it croquoid process, if I'm right with the spelling. Croquoid process. And croquoid process is basically the place that the pectoralis minor originate from, and the pectoralis minor, it comes here and grabs to number 5, rib number 5, 3, 4 and 3. This is pectoralis minor, and sometimes when you look at the people who have, again, well developed muscles, you will see that there is a bump and some kind of changing of the surface it happens here. See, if this is a little bit flatter, you see there is a bump here sometimes. It's because of this muscle underneath. And this muscle, this also croquoid process is the origin for another muscle that is between that's biceps and triceps. They call it coracobrachialis. Is the muscle that lives between the biceps and triceps. The last thing I want to talk here in this slide is that the head of the humerus, the bone of the upper arm, it has a very nice big round head, and this round head, if imagine from the side view, this is that acromion process, and it goes all the way down to basically the scapula. Yes, the scapula, and this is the clavicle, the head of the clavicle on the top, and it goes this way. This head exists a little bit ahead of the acromion process, and it causes basically it pops up here in this area. You see it's a little bit protrusion on the deltoid muscle, and specifically under basically front part of the deltoid, and it's very obvious specifically on the limb people and female. So if you pay attention to that, you will figure it out about this head of the humerus that makes this nice round surface form. And remember, the abs are not symmetrical whenever you're sculpting. At some stage that you have the primary shapes, you need to break the symmetry and start to sculpt each side individually. The same thing that I was doing here. Radius anterior, and this area of the latissimus dorsi is the thickest part of that, and as it goes to the back, it becomes thinner and thinner. So usually we see three of that serratus anterior muscle, and the fourth one on the top of that, which goes under the pectoralis muscles, we see barely part of that. Usually we see three of them, but it's different between person to person. So for some people we see two of them, they have just two of them visible. Some people have four of them visible clearly, besides the one that goes underneath of the pectoralis major. See, it's clearly lined up with the front part of the deltoids, the trapezoid muscle, the area that connects to the clavicle. Rectus spinalis muscle, spinal rectus spine. It's a little bit hard to pronounce that. So right now I'm creating muscle fibers here because it's changed to tendon and attaches to the spine of the scapula. Remember that? And trying to smooth out everything and to make everything nice and clean. So as you see here in this stage, I broke the symmetry and I'm working on each individual sides independently. That's very important to have a more believable and realistic, basically, torso character when you're working on a character. Some area that I see that I have a little bit indentations and depression that basically it happened accidentally. I used it clay build-up brush to fill up the gaps and it gives me a nice smooth surface. And again, if the character is well developed, we see the separation on here and we have almost 8 packs and 8 abdominal muscles visible. But barely we can see that. We'll need to do a lot of hard workouts to make this part visible. And gluteus medius, gluteus maximus in the back. And here we have a little bit depression. These are related to the vertebrates because this muscle grabs to grab on the vertebrates in the back. Because of that, we see that depressions on the muscle itself here in this area, here and there. Defining the 7 vertebrates here and a little bit more other vertebrates on the top, and breaking basically here this line to show the muscle fibers. Right now I'm starting to fading out that basically it's the lines of related to its external oblique because barely they are visible. It's rare cases that persons develop them very well, so you can see them very obviously. down the leg muscles again, make everything smooth. And this is the final result. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something out of this. Have a great day.